I was homeschooled as a child. And in this video, I'm going to share my experience of being homeschooled in America. I'll talk about the pros, then the cons, the things I regret, and the one thing homeschooling gave me that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Something like 3 to 6% of children in the United States are homeschooled for different reasons. I was raised in a family of 5, 2 brothers, 1 older, 1 younger, both parents at home. And our family was unusual in our area, in our community, for a few different reasons. 1, we were homeschooled. 2, we didn't have a TV. We didn't have a TV until I was maybe 13 or something like that. And there were some other things too, but those were big ones. And so my social group was my family, and my TV was outside, or playing with my brothers, or reading books. And in that environment, we were homeschooled. We would all later go to public school. So I went to public school too, later on. I went to a regular public high school, but I have the experience of both. Now, the first thing that kind of sticks out to me as a memory is actually a memory I don't have. I don't have a memory of starting school. I don't have a memory of being excited about going to school or making friends at school. I don't have those memories. I don't know when I started school exactly, and I don't think the line between not going to school and going to school, I don't think the line was very clear. I think it was a fuzzy line. And that has carried through my life, I've noticed, which is interesting. My work now, there isn't a clear line between working, not working, often. And that's good for me. I like that. I'm happy with that. But I noticed that started at a very young age. Blurred lines between, for example, hanging out and school. Maybe reading, is that school? If it's for school, I don't know. It's kind of fuzzy. But that's, I think, a good thing. I like it. The other thing is sibling dynamics. So, my older brother, 2 years older than me, started school before I did. But because he was 2 years older than me, I felt a sense of competition well up inside of me. What are you learning? And why can't I learn that? What are you reading? Why can't I read that? So, again, for better or worse, I always had this sense of competition with my older brother that I had to do what he was doing. And I think when it comes to school, that did help me a lot because I was always pushing myself to do something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, that I wasn't ready to do. And there was also some rebelliousness there too, because he didn't like always that I was doing what he was doing. He wanted to be the older one doing what the older brother does. And I would always do it, and that would cause some tension. And then I would, do something mischievous, and he would say, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And so that would make me want to see what I could get away with. So there was a bit of, I would say, healthy tension there, especially between my older brother and I. And I realize now that really motivated me. It made me very motivated to always reach for the next thing. Now, the reason I mention this is that every household that does homeschooling is going to be different. In public school, generally, kids are the same age. So you don't have that dynamic as much. But if you're an only child, or you have 2 siblings, it's going to be different, I think, for every family, for every child. but I mention it because I think it was relevant for me. It was a big part of my experience of being homeschooled. The other thing that really stands out to me, besides the blurred lines between school and not school, besides the sense of competition between my brother and I, is a focus on following curiosity. My mother did a very good job, I think, homeschooling us. She was very into it. She was very attentive as a mother and as a homeschool teacher. And it's a lot of work if you do it well. You can be lazy and not do it well, or you can really focus and you can do it well. One thing I think she did really well, and this maybe is a message to parents thinking about homeschooling your kids, she tried to learn our individual learning styles and our individual interests and provide things, not as things we had to do, but options, things as options that we could do, that we could follow. I'm not sure if she was reading the Montessori method or not, but she was pretty much following what's called the Montessori approach or the Montessori framework, where basically you introduce things that are slightly challenging, that may be interesting to the child, and then kind of follow their interests based on how they interact with things, based on what they want to do more of, and you provide the next challenge as a possibility. That keeps them motivated, and it keeps them interested in learning. So I think she did a great job with that. And I think that it helped me develop a sense of curiosity. So if I'm supposed to be learning about this thing in this book, maybe today we'll go to the woods near our home and find things from the book and then kind of match them and talk about them. So there's something tangible there. Or maybe I'm really interested in this thing that happened in history. Let's say, I don't know, Native Americans and how they lived. Maybe we'll drive to one of the old burial sites or something like that and learn about it in person. An impromptu field trip, things like that. So I remember a lot of stuff like that. I could read this book or that book, and I'm more interested in that book, so I get to read that book. I'm really interested in rockets, so I can learn all of the things about rockets, why they fly, what keeps them in a straight line, what makes them go. I can learn all of those things because I'm interested in that. It's something extra. So that has stuck with me. A love of learning following curiosity. I really want to know more about that. In order to know more about that, I need to read about it. I need to go there and check it out. I need to travel somewhere. That thing that happened at an early age for me instilled in me that not just love for learning, but that connection between learning and curiosity. It's one of the things I talk about all the time as an English teacher. If your curiosity is not there, then learning is flat and kind of dead. But if you find windows, ways to tap into, I want to know that next thing, to tap into that feeling, then you'll never give up, right? I have a very specific memory of going to the cabinet where all of the answers to the math problems that I had to do were, looking up all the answers and writing them down. And my mother had no problem with me doing that. Go ahead. But then once I had all the answers, then what is there to do? I've got to do these problems, but here are all the answers. Well, now that I have the answer, getting the answer is no longer the important thing. It's why is this the answer to this problem? So, in a lot of public schooling, it's the other way around. It's You need to get the correct answer so that you can pass the test. But if you reverse that, here's the answer. You do need to pass the test later. We had to take some tests. There are requirements for homeschool students. You have to pass certain state tests, right? Well, here are the answers. I need to figure out why that's the answer. Flipping that around made me want to solve problems, made me want to figure things out because they were interesting, because I didn't know them, because they were challenging, not because you have to know, you have to get the answer. Because if you have the answer, then you can pass the test. Only in high school did I get that sense of, oh, I have to pass tests. A really clear idea about, oh, I need to pass tests. So, following curiosity, challenging myself, but also not focusing so much on getting the answer, but rather focusing on why is this the answer? Problem solving. Right? And having the flexibility and the freedom to do that, because I think my older brother was a bit different. He liked, if I remember correctly, to find the answer. I'm not sure about my younger brother. I was paying less attention to his schooling because maybe he was 4 years younger. And so I think my mother was very focused on making sure, okay, this is how Luke likes to learn. And sometimes I would say, hey, Mom, can I study up in my tree house today? Up in the tree. Yeah, sure, you can study in the tree. So I would go and study in the tree. Well, just changing the environment, that's flexibility. And why not? Why wouldn't you be allowed to study in the tree, right? Who cares if you study in the tree or in the grass or in the woods, as long as you do the work, right? As long as you do what you're supposed to do. So the main theme here is flexibility. Freedom, but still limitations, still requirements, right? I still had things I had to do. I had to finish a certain amount of work every day. But because I had that flexibility, that freedom, I could do the work and be done early and then go out and play. So this is another piece, a reward for working hard. In public school, you go to school from 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. every day, or whatever it is, no matter what. And so in public school, everybody's kind of generally moving at the same pace. Yes, there are advanced classes and things like that, but there are more limitations. Whereas when you're being homeschooled by an attentive parent, they're paying attention to your individual path. They're allowing you to pursue your interests. Hopefully, they're giving you some freedom while at the same time giving limitations. And you're able to, I think, build confidence in yourself as someone who can make choices and decide what you want to do and decide how you want to solve this problem. Right? Again, something I've always carried with me. Not just curiosity, but a sense of confidence in my choices are my choices, and I need to figure them out. I need to figure out what I need to do. I don't need to be told what I have to do next, and next. So this all sounds, I guess, good, right? I'm not saying there aren't cons. I'm going to talk about the cons. But let me just list the pros here. Pros. Number 1. If you have an attentive parent who's really into homeschooling, I think learning can be more holistic. It's not just about getting the answer, it's about developing that curiosity, all of that stuff. More holistic. You can develop your personality, your interests as part of your education, not separate from your education. Individualized learning, even 3 siblings may be completely different. Following that path will allow you to move faster. I was always trying to read more advanced books, right? Until I was reading things I couldn't understand at all. But in other areas, I was a little slower. And that dynamic adjustment of individualized learning, I think, was helpful. A home environment is safe, comfortable. Your social circle is your family. And sometimes other homeschool kids. Sometimes there were homeschool group gatherings. I don't remember them very well. Lots of reading. Reading is so important. And a love of reading, I think, is very, very important. But not just the minimum, but lots of reading. Me reading, my mother reading, my father reading. And going back to the home environment thing, storytelling. We would maybe take a break and my father would tell a story. And then we would go back to learning. Tea time, things like that. It's just more fun, more comfortable, right? More freedom. More freedom. So those are the pros, I think. There are a lot of pros, but I think it all hinges on having attentive parents who understand the basic principles of something like the Montessori approach, who really want to help you reach your potential without forcing you to do too many things, while at the same time making sure you do what you need to do. That's a tricky line, right? Being responsible, learning to be a hardworking person, but also having flexibility and freedom. Tricky line to walk there. Well, this brings me to the cons, the negatives. As I got a little older, began to feel like the weird kid. I didn't have a TV. I didn't know a lot of the kids. I spent some time around kids, other homeschool kids, and I played baseball, and so I socialized a bit. But there wasn't that day-to-day experience of going to school with other kids, and that when I did interact with those kids, for example, at baseball, I felt like an outsider. They were talking about cartoons that I'd never heard of because I didn't have a TV. They were talking about video games they were playing. I didn't really play video games until maybe I was 9 or 10, something like that. And so I felt like a bit of an outsider. And I just didn't feel like I had that connection. And so one of the cons, I think, potentially, of homeschooling is not having that social sense. And I think you need to develop it early. And I don't think I got it to this day. I think you either have it or you don't have it. I lack a sense of connection with my peer group. I'm very independent, but maybe too much so. I can go 6 months without socializing and I'm totally fine. But that's not necessarily a good thing, right? I would like to feel a stronger desire to be social and to connect more deeply with my peer group. And I went to a public high school with those kids who were grown up, right, when I was in high school, but it was kind of too late. Just never really had that sense of these are my people, my peers. I was always kind of outside looking at them through a window. That's how I felt, and that's how I still feel in a lot of ways. I think that going to public school was good for me in the sense that it allowed me to at least learn the ropes. This is how it works. This is normal. right? And once I was 13, we got a TV and video games and stuff. And I really wanted to be normal at that time. So I really wanted to go to school. And I think that there was value there for sure. But it's a tricky thing, because I think those social skills need to come at a certain age. Maybe not social skills, but a social sense. I don't want to give the impression that I don't know how to have conversations, but a sense of something, camaraderie with your peers, that sort of thing, I think. So that's a big con. That's a really big, in my opinion, that is a really big con. I think another big con is if your parents aren't really focused on what you're doing, you can go way off course. You could get away with a lot. You could get away with not learning very much at all. So I think probably, I'm guessing here, I haven't seen the statistics, there's probably more variability between the outcomes of homeschool kids than public school kids. That's just my guess. I'm not sure about that. That's my sense. It can go wrong, I guess is what I'm saying. And so if I'm talking to any parents here thinking about homeschooling your kids, don't do it if you just kind of want to and maybe it'll be good for them. I don't know. Don't do it. Do not do it. Only do it if the idea of being a full-time teacher to one or more kids is exciting to you, interesting to you, right? And makes you have a sense of, maybe this would be a fun activity. We could read these books. We could explore this. We could travel here. That sort of thing. If that excites you, if you feel energized by that, then maybe it is a good choice. But you have to really be on it, I think, and really be engaged. So yes, I think the big con is that it can go wrong. And in my case, it did go wrong in some ways. I won't say everything is perfect. I won't, I don't want to make a strong judgment one way or the other, but I feel that I missed some things. That's my feeling. But I think, got a lot of benefits from the way that I learned. My feeling now it's time for me to talk about my regrets. I have a very big regret. I wish that I had been one or the other. That's my wish. I was homeschooled and then went to public school because I wanted to be cool and I wanted to have friends. I wish that I had just been homeschooled all the way through. Because I think then I would have had more of the benefits of continuing down that path, right? Following my interests, following curiosity, learning things that are really challenging for me, maybe beyond my reach. I think, and I performed well in public school. I did well. I graduated at the top of my class. But I think I could have really pushed myself had I continued homeschooling, and I don't think I got a lot of benefit from going to public school. I really don't. That is my regret. Now, what would that have done socially? I do not know. Who knows? But I think I could have maybe achieved certain things that I didn't achieve because I made that choice. Now, I said I was going to share something that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, something that I got from homeschooling. It is this. And I think it is one of the things that I treasure the most in my life, and one of the things that I wish for everyone. I got this built-in curiosity and a connection between curiosity and doing something about it, learning, exploring. Almost insatiable. I'm always thinking about something I'm curious about, reading about it, exploring it, going as deep as I can. I'm just very curious about not everything. I'm curious about the things I'm curious about, and I want to learn more. And so I read about those things, and I think about them, and I write about them, and I talk about them. And I wish everyone had that feeling, because I know people sometimes don't really develop their interests. I don't just mean interests like skiing or badminton. Those are great hobbies, wonderful. But I mean a sort of constant wondering about, I wonder why this is like that. It's this, I think, way of thinking of not what is the answer, but this is there. Why is it there? How did it get there? Can I figure out how it got there? Can I understand that? That has value in and of itself, in my opinion. And for me, it is kind of my driving core. It makes me happy every day. It gives me a sense of joy about life and living. And I wish everyone, if they don't have it, could have it. And I talk about this all the time for English learning. If you are not interested in what you're doing, if you don't have curiosity about something, when you're learning English, you're going to give up pretty quickly because you need a fuel to push you. You need a thing, an energy source to make you continue doing something, right, every day, or regularly at least. So if you're an English learner, find the things that you're really interested in and connect English learning to those. If you have curiosity, connect your English, let's say, journey to that thing you're curious about, those interests that you have, and that will help you stick with it. And if you look around and realize you're not curious about anything, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. I hope everybody has it. I really do. Well, that's it. If you have any questions about my experience, my journey, I'm happy to answer. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Get a free course in the links in the description. And I will see you in the next one.